So welcome back to Belvoir Today. Within old homes like Belvoir, it's very, very common to hear bumps in the night, footsteps over your room. That's part of the magic and mystique of living in these buildings. It fascinates me. So often I'll speak to the sounds and say, "Who's there?" And no one replies. Today, I'd love to share with you some of the things that we've experienced firsthand here with ghosts at Belvoir, and the people who surround me and what they've seen. And also share with you my own experiences, which have lasted for many years at the castle. The castle is a place full of energy and spirits. Just recently, we've had someone playing around with the lights. A poltergeist, we believe. They're going on and off, and when we put them off, they're actually back on. Now, our head guide, who's right here on site with me, is going to tell you exactly what's been going on in my home.
Hello, I'm Chris, one of the head guides at Belvoir Castle. I've worked here about 2.5 years, and until the last few weeks, nothing really odd has happened to me. But I was talking to some visitors in the room opposite the one I'm standing in now, the state dining room, and I looked across and saw all the lights were out in the Elizabeth saloon. I thought that was odd because I switched those on when we opened up this morning, so I thought nothing more of it at the time and went to switch them back on again. And a couple of days later, one of my colleagues had noticed some other lights switched off during the middle of the day. Again, I thought nothing of it particularly, but it wasn't until the third occasion when one of my colleagues said that one of the chandeliers in the Regent's Gallery had been switched off during the day. This is starting to get a bit creepy, but I'm a fairly down-to-earth person. I've walked around Belvoir Castle in the darkness and not felt scared at all, but this doesn't add up. And today, at lunchtime, one of my colleagues told me that a visitor had just said the corridor leading from the chapel was in darkness. I switched those lights on at 9 o'clock this morning, so went back and switched them back on again. And I thought, this is getting really strange now. In the last few weeks, we've had at least 4 occasions when lights have mysteriously been switched off during the day. I don't know whether we've suddenly developed a ghost here at Belvoir that doesn't like having the lights on, or trying to save electricity. I don't know, but we really can't explain why these lights keep getting switched off.
The Elizabeth Saloon is one of, if not the grandest rooms in Belvoir. It was used for the crown, if you remember. It was designed by the 5th Duchess, Elizabeth, my icon, and her presence and energy can be felt everywhere in this majestic room. I'm now going to introduce you to Henrik, who's had his very own experience in the Elizabeth Saloon, maybe with Elizabeth.
Hello everyone. Now I'd like to introduce you to a second strange occurrence which has happened in the castle. This happened to me personally in December 2021 along with a colleague. We were in the Elizabeth Saloon, which was decorated with Christmas trees and lights, and it looked magical. We were closing the doors and we had 1 or 2 people wandering in, and we then came round here and we have the fireplace, and then we've got the cabinets either side of the fireplace. We were telling the people about the history of the room, how it was designed as a birthday present for the 5th Duke. However, this is where it gets a little bit spooky. As we're approaching these cabinets, both of the centre panels, which are here, and the second one there, dropped simultaneously, mysteriously. There was no overhead aircraft, obviously no lorries. And what did we put it down to? It could have been the 5th Duchess saying, I think your time is up, you need to leave my saloon now, and we departed rather hastily, can I say. However, that has never occurred since to myself or anyone else who was a guide or head guide. So the mystery will continue, no doubt.
Christmas is a time when the spirits seem to come alive at Belvoir. We see lots more activity from our ghosts around the festive season. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Ruth, who has her very own story to share from Christmas last year.
Hi, my name's Ruth. I'm a tour guide here at Belvoir Castle. I also do 2 days a week in the shop. It was Christmas last year, late December 22, and I was in the shop cashing up. It was about 4:45. One of my colleagues came in. It was cold, so all the doors were closed and there was no draft anywhere. He stood here and suddenly one of the Duke's Books Resolution, as you can see, it's a rather thick book, jumped off that shelf and landed at his feet next to me here. Now, as I say, there was no draft, there was nobody about. It was really creepy.
It's not just on the public side that ghosts decide to hang out. It's also on the private side. They're not too fussy. And I'd like to introduce you to Katie, our very special events organiser, and she's going to share with you her experience of meeting a lady in the private rooms.
Hi there, my name is Katie Fletcher and I'm the Castle Events and Operations Manager. As part of my role, I do a lot of the serving on the family side. It was one Sunday afternoon a couple of weeks ago where I was serving the family Sunday lunch. Once we had finished serving the family and it was time to close down, I made the way from the private side back onto where we do all of the finishing of the tidying up. As I went through the door to go back down the stairs, what I thought was Lady Violet in a purple dress. I felt a presence. As you can see, the door does swing. And as I turned round, it was a lady in a purple dress. Now, I went to obviously go make sure that the family was okay, make sure the girls were okay. But as I had to turn back round to come and check, there was no one here. There was no other people around on a Sunday afternoon. It was just myself, and there was no one else in the family that was wearing purple on that afternoon. So we're not sure who it was, but it was definitely a lady making sure that I was doing the tidying up. Afterwards, I realised that I hadn't actually heard any heels, any footsteps coming through. And as you can hear, the door is quite creaky. And when there isn't a creak, who was it?
What really has fascinated me about living in heritage is that I too have experienced these things that are unexplainable, really. I do so remember when we first arrived at Belvoir, there was a wonderful guide called Mr. Jenkins. And Mr. Jenkins sought me out, and he used to pass little notes to me. And on the little notes, he'd have a message. I thought it was rather strange and mentioned it to my mother-in-law, and she said, "Oh yes, he often did the same to me." And really, it was a message from the other side, from someone we couldn't see, we couldn't feel, we couldn't touch, but they were on a portrait. She was called Elizabeth, and she was directly, through the guide, Mr. Jenkins, sending me messages. And it was actually very comforting, because it was so daunting, the whole journey of taking over this castle. I used to really get quite upbeat about dear Mr. Jenkins's messages. And one day he sent me a message and he said, "You have to go and look deep and hard in your archives. There are covenants you haven't yet found." So exactly as I did it, and sure enough, there in a drawer, we found something we'd been missing for some time. Now, you may know that we found all a way back in the early years the Capability Brown plans, and I truly believe that was Elizabeth that sent me to that drawer. Most people find ghosts quite scary, quite daunting, but not at Belvoir. We actually welcome this energy in. We find them quite a comfort. In the early days, I have to say, when I arrived, there was a lot of very bad, strong, angry ghosts who couldn't bear the idea of a young family moving into this building. I had to get rid of them quite quickly. But now we've got a far softer energy around us, and that's quite encouraging. A little tip: if you are daunted or in any way scared of a presence of any kind and feel it around you, often in the middle of the night, do what I've always told my children. Tell it to go to the light. Go to the light. One more thing. I felt not long ago that there was an energy that was just not right in the corridor going down to the chapel. And when I speak to you on my next Belvoir Today story, I'll let you into a few more secrets about what we found out. Thank you so much for listening to Belvoir Today. I hope you found it interesting. And if you've enjoyed listening to some of these stories, please come back to me and tell me some of yours. I love hearing this information because it's that energy that surrounds us that's so key. If you'd like to see more of these videos, please like them in the box below, and I'll see you in the next Belvoir Today.